Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Brian Case from Chicago noise rock band FACS to the podcast. You can snag that album on CD, vinyl, and cassette, as well as digitally. Links will be in the show notes. Brian talks about discovering punk, sharing music with friends, the origins of FACS, releasing music through COVID, and more. It was an absolute delight getting to discover FACS' discography, and I hope you guys will check out their new record and dive into their catalog. It's worth your time. Thanks to all our Patreon subscribers. You all help keep the show going. All Patreon subscribers get early access to every episode, so join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Also, a shout out to all our Substack subscribers. Last week, I shared a special playlist on Substack that had previously been for Patreon members, showcasing music from all the podcast's upcoming guests. Join us at asthestorygrows.substack.com. Links will be in the show notes. Enjoy today's chat with Brian Case of FACS. How are things up in Chicago today?
Great. Been moving all morning, just up and about, and that feels good. And yeah.
That's awesome, man. Did you grow up in Chicago?
I grew up in St. Louis, so
yeah.
I moved here when I was 18.
That's nice. Did you move out for college?
Yeah, I had some friends who were living here, and we were starting a band, and then school was here. So I kind of chose this place to go to school.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's rad. Was growing up in St. Louis like?
Fine. Like, yeah, good place to grow up. I had a lot of friends there. There was stuff to do, keep me busy. Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. Yeah.
What were you into as a child? Were you like sports minded or music minded or just
music? Yeah. It's kind of always been there. So there's great record stores and older people to show me things, and there was all ages clubs and house shows and all sorts of stuff. So
nice. What got you into music?
I don't know. I have really like early memories of just looking through my parents' records and putting records on and like dancing with my sister like in the basement. Like it was, I don't know, I've always been attracted to it. So
yeah,
it's kind of always been a part of my life.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's rad. Were you like a school band kid?
No.
No?
I can't read music. I don't know anything about playing guitar other than how to get the sound in my head out of it. So, yeah.
That's a step ahead of me. So I'm just like, I know what this riff should sound like, but it does not. Frustrated. Yeah, it'd be great to take lessons one day, but I feel like I got my own style at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to like go back and pay attention to theory and, some things that I hear that I know are correct, but sort of knowing why they're correct or, kind of learning maybe why I do some of the things that I do. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We're always learning, right? If you knew, it's good to continue to evolve.
Always. Yeah. That's cool. What was your first instrument? Guitar?
No, piano. I took piano, and my teacher at some point pulled my mom aside and was like, you got to get this guy a guitar. Like, this is not, if you want them to play music, like, this is the way to go. So luckily my folks were receptive to that. And so I've been playing guitar since I think I was 11 or 12 or something.
Nice. Yeah. Same. Yeah. That's cool. When did you start playing in bands?
A few years after that. I had a band. I think the first band I had, I was 7th grade, maybe. Me and just some people who I knew kind of from the neighborhood, and we just did like, Guns N' Roses songs and that kind of thing, and just had a lot of fun hanging out and learning how to play. And we did that for a while. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Was it always this like serious thing of like this thing you wanted to do, play in bands and like make music?
Yeah, I was always like very motivated to have a band and to play music and, be out there like working and playing shows. Like that's always really appealed to me and been something that I've wanted to make like as much a part of my life as the world will allow me to.
Yeah. You said there was a good scene in Chicago. Was it not Chicago, St. Louis? Was it like a good place to like form bands and like have friends who are also into whatever you wanted to do musically, or was it?
I mean, I had that experience. Yeah. Like I had friends and we were all doing our thing, and there were some older siblings who had bands that, kind of showed us what they figured out before we were able to. And, there was lots of basement shows, and there was tons of bands for, kids our age. So it was fun to like, we could see touring bands, we could do local shows. It was always a really good, like supportive, like really healthy scene. So
that's right.
Yeah. I feel like really lucky that that's the environment I got to grow up in.
Yeah. You mentioned Guns N' Roses, but when you were starting bands, what was your like influence and inspiration for what you wanted to play?
Well, I sort of, before like I even thought about having a band, it was just learning how to play guitar. And like, at that time, that was like the, I don't know, end of the 80s. I was, like Guns N' Roses was, very eye-opening to me. Like I'd never heard lyrics like that, or, even the music was different from what I was hearing on like the classic rock station or whatever. And it wasn't too long before, that just turned over into punk. Like I remember really specifically, I got a friend of mine at school, this was like 7th grade, gave me a tape that was Ozzy Osbourne on one side and Sex Pistols on the other. And I definitely responded way more to the Sex Pistols side, and just started learning about, that sort of led me down a path of like, oh, what is this music? And there's all these bands, I've never heard of them and never hear this stuff on the radio. And, then you start going to record stores and people start kind of helping you connect the dots. And then at that time, everybody would kind of buy one record and we would just tape things for each other and trade them. So you're getting this like musical kind of library built on the backs of all your friends, and like the $20 a week you all got from mowing the lawn,
Right. Or you meet somebody and they're like, oh, you like hardcore, let me make you a tape. And
I got this
Biscuits and Earth Crisis, and
or like you'd go to the record store and like there'd be 5 records everybody wanted, so everybody would just buy one of those, and then you would
make tapes for each other. Yeah, that's cool. And did that like unlock for you I could do this, discovering punk? And it's not that it's easier, but just like the accessibility of it, and just like the not like grandiose nature of rock.
Like teaching myself how to play like submission was a lot different than trying to learn like some Van Halen song or whatever. Like it was a more realistic goal to have 4 people in a room try to figure that stuff out than Ain't Talking About Love or whatever. So like it was cool in that respect that like that music, like we could make it sound good a little bit quicker, and it was just more immediate in terms of like the energy and the feeling, and it felt fresh, and like we felt like we were at that point doing something different than some of the other people that we knew who were playing music, and that felt cool too, like kind of our secret. So
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
What'd you go to school for in Chicago?
Fine art. I did a bunch of like various art practices and have carried them into various non-art fields.
How did FACS get started? Am I pronouncing that right?
You are. Three of us were in this band before FACS. It was called Disappears, and one that was a 4-piece band, and one person wanted to leave, but the three of us still wanted to continue making music together. And we had done that band for almost 10 years. We're like, why don't we kind of fresh start this for us too, and we can sort of reinvent ourselves. So we changed our name, and we just started playing, kind of picked up where we left off musically with The Other Thing, with like a little bit different focus. I switched instruments. That band was 2 guitars, bass, drums, and I switched to bass. So we started this band as a 3-piece, just bass, drums, and guitar. And kind of just was a natural extension out of the project we had going before.
Yeah. Where'd the name come from?
It's Factory Records. Are you familiar with that label? Yeah. So their catalog abbreviation is FAC. And I just liked the way those letters looked, and I thought it was kind of a cool reference to, some of our inspirations, or sort of where our heads were at in terms of the music we're making and the sort of ethics behind it. It kind of looked good, and then we could link it to this other cool historical thing without being terribly obvious. So it seemed like a good thing to do.
Yeah. Has the evolution in your sound kind of like, I've noticed listening through the discography, like the presence of the bass and how much more bass driven it is. Is that just like your comfortability writing on bass or playing bass over the years? It's gone?
Yeah. Well, so we made our first record and I played bass on it. And then our guitar player decided to leave.
Okay.
And then, so our friend, Aliana came in, and she came in on bass and I switched to guitar.
Okay.
But to kind of answer the question, once I kind of went back on guitar from bass, I just was sort of interested in just more abstract parts, kind of more gauzy, textures, as opposed to chord progressions, things like that. So the rhythm section really just became more the focal point, because I was sort of intentionally being a little bit more abstract and
Gotcha.
just sort of out of the focus. And if the rhythm section's good, then everything's good. So, and Aliana and Noah were like really great chemistry together. So it was, very natural to just, focus on that. And I could kind of color in the borders and the edges with what I was doing.
Yeah. That's cool. Talk to me about the relationship with Trouble in Mind.
I knew Bill and Lisa they had a band for a long time called Coco Comas, and I liked seeing them play, and they were great. And Bill worked at a really cool record store in Chicago called Permanent. So I would see him regularly, just, buying records, and their label was always cool, always putting out good stuff. And when we got to the point where this band started and we were thinking about new ways to do things, I sent them some music, just, curious if they were interested in just more like what they thought. And then they liked it. And then we decided to work together, and it's been really great just working with friends, people who own a label who have also been in a band, been on tour. They know the realities of that situation and kind of what goes into it and what you get out of it. They're really sweet people who care about putting out good music.
Yeah.
They know what it's like to be in a band and the sacrifices involved. Even if you're, operating on whatever level, big or small, there's always things that just exist when you make those decisions. So working with people who know what those are is extremely helpful.
Yeah. And it helps that they're local, and
they live up the street from me, and it's like I like spending time with them. I love going to their house and saying hey, checking in, getting records. They're always ready, they're ready to help, and it's great.
Yeah. Has your as the years have gone by and you've been in bands for a long time, and everything musically had shifted so much digital, and everything's on Bandcamp now, and like cassettes are back for indie artists, and like all the nature of the way music works. Like, has it changed your perspective, especially coming out of a pandemic with this new record? Like, your approach to releasing music, has it shifted?
No, I probably should shift it a little more than I have. I mean, we're just like, our goal as a band is to, remain engaging to each other. Like, we like to put out a record every year. Because we like to make music, the part for me of being in a band is the writing and the recording process. Like, that's where, to me, the most surprises happen, and, the most unexpected things, or like the coolest parts of collaborating with people happen in those situations. I love going on tour and playing live, and that's a whole different thing. But for us, like, the reality is that the day-to-day practice of making music and working together is the exciting part for me. So I don't think about it as maybe strategically as some people do in terms of when they release, how they release, what they focus on in terms of like festival, like releasing around a festival, doing things like that. We're more just like, we finished a record, it's going to come out, and however long it takes to get it pressed, and from there we'll just see what happens. And for me, being consistent is more important than being like a little more globally, like, we're going to play Coachella, which means this guy, like, that's probably not ever going to happen for us. So we're just kind of focusing on just making music that we like, and, satisfying our own creative urges.
Yeah. Yeah. Is like the consistency in releasing why you have like the In a Present Tense, the live recording, and like the radio show on Bandcamp?
Yeah, those were more like the In a Present Tense was for the record Present Tense, which we knew would be coming out while the pandemic was still hanging around and shows were not really possible. So we made this, like, instead of making like individual videos for songs, we just made this kind of live. We just played the record live in this cool space with people that we're friends with who are great at like recording and producing something like that. So we had this really great recording, and we're like, we should just, we could press up a couple, what do we do? 300 copies of it in town at this record pressing plant. And knowing that it would take almost a year for that to be ready, we were like, well, if any touring happens, it won't happen towards the end of the year anyway. We would have a live thing that would be cool, just to like give people, it was just a way to continue to like engage with people in a time when that was difficult.
Yeah.
And the radio show was all part of like, in a record we released in 2020 called Void Moments. We had this huge like campaign, like we were wheat pasting posters all over Chicago, and it just had this phone number, and it didn't even say our name. It just said, "Are you experiencing void moments?" And it was a phone number. So we were collecting all these phone messages, and we were, the intention was always to do this sort of like radio show where we would just kind of collect them all and put them together and group them in different ways. And it was cool because, everybody got, this real shock when this pandemic happened.
Yeah.
There was a lot of opportunities for people to, call into this thing and be honest about how they were feeling. There was also a lockdown. So all the posters that were up all over town, you could see them. So, cause they literally went up about a week before lockdown, and the record came out, March 20th or whatever it was supposed to come out.
27th.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it was gonna be really cool. It ended up being pretty cool still, but, that was just, it was just a fun way to, again, like just try to engage with different people and just like put something out there and see what comes back. So it was, I don't know. It was just like a fun thing, a fun way for us to like see what happens. And the situation that ended up happening was way different than any of us would have imagined.
Yeah. Putting out a record called Void Moments, March 27th, right as or before lockdown is happening. It's almost prophetic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was weird. Those first 3 or 4 months, like nobody did anything. Like we didn't practice. We were in touch a lot because we had this record did come out, and we were all sort of keeping tabs on what was happening with it, and sort of trying. Everybody was scrambling. Like, is this thing gonna last 6 months? Is this gonna last? How long is this gonna last? Yeah. So we were still, because we canceled a bunch of touring, and we were trying to figure out if that was gonna happen again at all that year. But at some point, we just made the decision, like, let's just wait this thing out. And in the meantime, let's just try to make another record. And that was Present Tense. So we just got to work, like, writing. That was sort of all any of us were doing was that was our, like, leave the house thing. We were in our space where we were all separate enough, and we were wearing masks. And that was sort of our outlet to sort of process that situation was, let's just write this record. And so we were able to do that. We were able to find a window to record it, which was surprising. And so we just tried to be productive, like kind of just stay on our personal track. And luckily we were able to do that.
Yeah. New record is called Still Life In Decay, out April 7th. Where'd the title from the record come?
We were initially just going to call it Still Life. And I think it was just like a little bit of a comment on, like, we had Void Moments, which was, serendipitous title. Present Tense, which was about, where we were at the time, but also like this tense moment in time. And then Still Life In Decay was sort of looking back on that. And it's like, things felt like they were sort of in stasis, and also kind of talking about, it's still life, but, everything's dying and we're falling apart, So the title is also kind of like most titles of our records. I feel like it's just like a comment sort of about what is on the album and the perspective that it was coming from. And also just, try to be a little bit clever about, our headspace.
Yeah. Are there any lyrical themes on this album?
Yeah, it's sort of about relationships and how they change over time, like how you can ebb and flow through people's lives, and, sort of being able to have a global perspective on people that you've, come in contact with at various points in your life, and how that changes and how it grows or goes away. And it's like relationships, but, not necessarily from a romantic perspective, more from like a memory and time perspective.
Yeah. Is that something that's like front of mind because the pandemic was so like straining on relationships, and like you didn't have them, or they were all virtual like this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that affected it. I'm sort of always writing about time and memory and how, they come in contact with each other, or how they influence each other. And so that's like kind of me just doing more of the same.
Yeah. Were there things you wanted to do differently? We've talked about kind of the evolution and the ebb and flow musically. Were there things on this record where you were like, oh, it'd be cool if we could do X thing differently than we'd previously done?
Sort of. We always, as a band, there's always the idea that we want to never make the same record twice, like let things evolve, but also not force things, so sort of just let the songs come out the way they come out. And invariably I feel like we've made 5 different records just based on the fact that we're 3 different people at different times in our lives, and navigating different situations. So we kind of just let it do its thing, and I feel like we've been fortunate to where that's mostly kind of worked in our favor.
Yeah. What led to picking Wnen You Say as the lead single?
It felt the most immediate. It kind of had it was a good kind of summary of the record in terms of it has a lot of the elements that I think people are looking for when they think of our band, but also I felt like maybe had a different perspective than some of it just kind of showed a new angle to what we were doing. So it felt like a good entry point for somebody who liked the band, or maybe was new to the band. They could kind of understand kind of what we're about. And then it just felt like it had enough difference too, to where somebody wouldn't be like, this band with this song again, I've heard this song every time they release a record. It felt like it had a good amount of that, with also being different enough too.
Yeah. There's an urgency and tension to the track that's building throughout, and you're just waiting for it to just explode in you.
Yeah, and it's it's really rhythm forward, and it's got those elements, and it's it's a very identifiable way that I sing, and the tension keeps building and it never really releases. But it feels like it's maybe done in a little bit different way than before. So it just seemed like a good one to throw out there and see what happened.
Yeah, it worked for me. So. Record comes out April 7th. What's the rest of this year look like? Are you guys going on tour? Or
Yes.
Yeah,
we're doing East Coast in May, West Coast in June. There's all little bits of stuff scattered around there, and it's I think we'll be in Europe and the UK in the fall. So yeah, things are lined up. More things are getting lined up. Hoping to be busy, and we're already working on the next album, so hope to get that done before the end of the year as well.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, the more I want. word. I'm